It has been over 2 years now since Kingdom Hearts 4 was officially revealed, not only continuing the story, but giving us a whole new look to Kingdom Hearts than what we're visually used to. And seeing as there's a Kingdom Hearts news drought right now, I thought it would be a fun idea to go over everything we know about the game when it comes to the story, about what characters we'll see, and what other Disney worlds and possible other surprise worlds that we'll get to see going into the game. With 2025 fast approaching now with pretty much little to no information on Kingdom Hearts 4 recently, I think it's almost safe to assume now that we won't be seeing anything substantial for this game until the end of 2025 at most. Now that Square Enix's heavy hitters are out of the way when it comes to Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Kingdom Hearts 4 is really their next major release that we can look forward to. And even though we haven't seen much of the game itself, we have a lot of details about it, and can even accurately gauge where KH4 could possibly take us going forward. Now, we do know that this game will be the beginning of a brand new chapter for the series. With Kingdom Hearts 3 being the end of the Darkseeker saga, we're now entering the beginnings of the Lost Master arc. For anybody who's even remotely up to date with the story thus far will know that the name is a reference to the Master of Masters. This is a character that will most likely end up being the final boss of Kingdom Hearts as a series. The Thanos of Kingdom Hearts, if you will. If I remember correctly, the Master of Masters was introduced in Kingdom Hearts Key, where he would then make his appearance again in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, introducing a whole bunch of concepts including that of Quadratum, which we see Sora in the trailer for KH4. What's interesting about Quadratum is that it's a world that resembles that of real life, taking place in Tokyo, Japan, where everything is just straight up modern, a stark contrast to what we're usually used to from past games. And yeah, just looking at it, the art style looks a lot more realistic than the whimsical world we're used to in Kingdom Hearts. And this would actually make sense given that every world that Sora visits, the art style kind of switches up to match that world. And so I mean, the same thing can really be applied here in Quadratum, as clearly now everything is a lot more realistic as a result. In the trailer, they also explain how Quadratum almost acts like an afterlife where people who die in the Kingdom Hearts universe go, a world made up of neither light nor darkness, but set outside the realm of reality. This is something that the Master of Masters introduces to us near the end of the Kingdom Hearts Union Cross storyline. With the start of a brand new arc, it looks like this is where the majority of the game will focus on. And from dev comments, it even sounds like the apartment that we see Sora wake up in will act as the main hideout of the game, where we can apparently do regular day-to-day activities, which to me sounds very interesting. Because does this mean that there will be some type of Persona-like mechanics or some type of affinity system built into the game to improve stats with other characters? Maybe there's something like a wardrobe change within the apartment, and even mini-games built into the hideout as well. I mean, to me, this just sounds like the greatest opportunity to branch out and try new mechanics for the series, seeing as this is a whole new setting and a brand new beginning where they can really show off what they can do with Kingdom Hearts going forward. Now, making its return is the reaction-based QTEs that we saw introduced in Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, I know there's always been this negative stigma around QTEs in video games, especially now, but I've always been a fan of a good QuickTime event. Now, that also depends on how the QTEs are handled, but for the most part, in a lot of action games, I've always been a fan of their implementation. The games that handle this the best are the ones that use QTEs as another tool to emphasize a cinematic feeling to gameplay, but not to dictate the entire outcome to a battle. For instance, I think the best recent example of a game that got this right was Final Fantasy XVI. QTEs in this game are handled as phase transitions, or when you beat the boss, a cool final finisher to a fight. They're never too overbearing to the point where they get in the way of gameplay, but they're simply there to provide that epic cinematic flair to the fight and nothing more. If you fail them, it's not like it's going to be a game over, and that's how it should be. And that applied to Kingdom Hearts 2 as well, and why I think that the reaction-based QTEs were so incredible to experience. The director of the game, Tetsuya Nomura, had thought that people simply weren't enjoying this mechanic in KH2, which resulted in the fact that we never saw it in KH3. And years later come to find out that, yeah, people actually did like this mechanic and thought it was pretty cool. And I agree. I will never forget the first time going through the last section of KH2 and cutting through those buildings, or deflecting those lasers with Riku. Those moments will forever be etched in my memory. And both of those moments were the results of the reaction-based command system that KH2 started. I think it's one of those mechanics that made that game so unique and why it stood out amongst the other games in the series. And I really think that bringing it back for KH4 is such a welcome addition. There have been so many predictions about what type of worlds we'll get to see in KH4. And with so many new Disney movies and properties that the series has yet to explore, I think that this is the perfect time for Square Enix and Disney both to push the series to even further heights than ever before. Throughout most of the games, Kingdom Hearts has always been known to rehash a lot of the worlds for many reasons. But I do think that if KH4 wants to succeed in a way none of the other games did, adding new worlds we haven't seen in the series yet should be a top priority. The one big prediction I think everybody has had at this point is seeing the introduction of Star Wars come to the series. Remember that during the very beginning of the trailer we see a forest area very reminiscent of that of Endor from Star Wars. And the one piece of evidence that seems very strong is the fact that you can clearly make out what seems to be an AT-ST foot in this one frame. It's such a specific location and a big contrast to a city location like Shibuya. I think there's a very strong chance that it could very well be Endor. It also just makes sense to see Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts simply because they are really similar. I'm honestly surprised that we haven't seen a crossover sooner, with the themes of hope and light versus dark. I mean, when you consider that a lot of the themes are taken from Star Wars, I think it's just the perfect crossover to have at this point. Now, hear me out on these because I do think it would be a good idea to see either Encanto or Soul as the musical worlds that we can potentially explore. When I think of good musical sections in Kingdom Hearts, I think of the Little Mermaid world back in Kingdom Hearts 2. We need another Disney world that just leans heavy into being musical and having us go through a fun little rhythm game just like in KH2. Moana is another world we absolutely need to see, and I'm sure many of you will agree. The themes of identity and destiny we see in Moana are two themes I think would work very well with what's happening right now in the events of KH4. Kingdom Hearts has always been great at mixing in Disney stories seamlessly into the plot, and it would be a perfect opportunity for Moana given the themes of that movie. And we can't move on without talking about potentially seeing the Marvel property introduced, as it would also make sense given that we're in a whole different reality than before. I mean, imagine running around with Iron Man or even Spider-Man while Sora is just in his own superhero suit. I think of how they did the Big Hero 6 world in KH3, but imagine how much more they can do with the worlds now that the series has moved to Unreal Engine 5. I don't think there is any excuse that we can't fit in a lot of new worlds that the series has yet to see. Ideally, they should be some of the best we've experienced thus far. There has been a lot of debate on whether or not Final Fantasy characters should make a prominent return to Kingdom Hearts. If you aren't already aware, Final Fantasy characters have slowly been pushed further and further away as the series has moved forward. And Nomura even goes into this by saying that Final Fantasy's implementation was just a way to further push Kingdom Hearts forward. And many KH fans were quick to point that out when I expressed my disappointment that FF characters were not as prominent as before. And that feeling has not changed. Even if they were there just to simply promote Kingdom Hearts, having Final Fantasy characters show up in these games were a large part of what got me into the series in the first place. It was part of that charm that these games had. And even though they were in KH3, it was only for a short period of time in the Remind DLC. It was the fact that not only were Final Fantasy characters also represented in Kingdom Hearts, they were just as prominent to the story just as much as the Disney worlds were. It felt like a celebration of not only Disney but of Square Enix and their popular IPs. Now, I don't think Kingdom Hearts needs Final Fantasy in their games, but again, that was part of the charm that really drew me into Kingdom Hearts. And it was simply awesome to see all of these Square Enix characters interact with each other and be a part of a larger story. With the new game comes a whole bunch of new characters and directions the story can go from here. At the end of the KH3 Remind DLC, we were properly introduced to Yozora. This is a character that exists within Quadratum and is clearly going to be very prominent to the story going forward. We know for sure that he is going to have a strong connection to Sora in this new reality that he's been thrust into. We saw that earlier in KH3 that Yozora was trying to save this girl whose name isn't really specified yet, but bears a strong resemblance to Stella from Final Fantasy Versus 13, which, if you haven't already known, everything that relates to Yozora's story is very much based off of that cancelled project that was Final Fantasy Versus 13. And it seems like that story that Nomura was going to create back then is something we'll see in Kingdom Hearts 4. Strelitzia is another character many fans will know from the mobile game Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. And well, in that game, her time was kind of cut short by Ventus. However, it's important to know that at this point in the story, he was kind of taken over by the darkness. And given that Quadratum sort of acts like the afterlife of this universe, we are now reunited with the Union leader that never was, Strelitzia. My guess is that both Yozora and Strelitzia will sort of act like the new party of sorts for Kingdom Hearts 4, or key characters that stay by Sora's side as he starts this unknown journey into Quadratum. And of course, the villains of not only this next game, but of the entire saga will most likely have to do with the Foretellers, Luxu, and of course, the Master of Masters. We know that Luxu is the apprentice of the Master of Masters, as he was given the task to watch over future events that would play out after Union Cross so that the Master of Masters could finish the Book of Prophecies. And if you don't know what the Book of Prophecies is, it is pretty much the written events of Kingdom Hearts in its entirety. Additionally, he was also given the task to watch over this black box that we really don't know the contents of. There are theories to go over what could be in the box, but if I were to go over that now, it would probably take an entire video. But we know Luxu and the Master of Masters both will be very prominent to the story as we see them appear near the end of the trailer, possibly watching Sora. We know that the Foretellers are also on the side of the Master of Masters. Well, at least some of them are. The thing is, all of the Foretellers hold their own motives, so it's very unlikely that we'll fight all of them, but it's very clear that at the very least, the Foretellers especially are going to be the villains of Kingdom Hearts 4. There's one more character that I don't think is necessarily going to be a villain, but more of a returning character that we encounter. That character being Xehanort. We know that Xehanort as well as Ericus both cease to exist at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. I think it's very safe to assume that we may see them again in Quadratum, or at least a version of them show up. But that is pretty much where we are in the series and everything you need to look forward to going into Kingdom Hearts 4. If there is anything I missed or anything you personally want to see in the game yourself, be sure to let me know down below. Hopefully with this, you have a better understanding of what you can expect when Kingdom Hearts 4 eventually releases.